Now, a 2020 study found that TVET colleges had been essentially considered and portrayed as a provider of entry and mid-level skills to respond to social and economic development. The study was conducted by the National Advisory Council on Innovation. This, however, may well be contrary to global trends where there are more students at vocational and technical institutions than they are at universities. Whether this can help South Africa meet its National Development Plan goals of growing an inclusive economy and enhancing the state's capacity is a question that our panel will seek to evaluate tonight. They are Siphiwe Khumalo, President of the South African Technical Vocational Education and Training Student Association. We also have the National Planning Commission member, Mary Metcalfe, and Mpumzi Giwu, the Western Cape Congress of South African Student Secretary, who is struggling with his connection at the moment. So you'll see him popping in and out now and again. But as you can see at this point, not quite connected well. But Mpumzi, we know you're there and you're trying to get on. Mary Metcalfe and Siphiwe Khumalo, good evening and thank you very much for your time and for joining us tonight here on In Focus. So when we look at the work that has been done towards bolstering our TVET colleges, there's a lot that has been done, I mean, including taking it and putting it under the Department of Higher Education. However, there is very little progress in the process of strengthening and expanding these particular colleges. So, for example, if you look at the numbers in 2019, 674,000 enrollments or about, but if you look at the 2020-2021 numbers, 508,000 enrollments. If you look at the number of the graduate output in 2019, 124,000 in 2019. If you look at 2020-2021, 72,000, right? Inefficiency in the systems being blamed and a number of other issues, which I'm sure we will touch on today. But Mary Metcalfe, let's talk about this. Why is the recapitalization and expansion of this sector not giving us the realization of that particular investment? And what is it costing us, particularly that this sector is not viewed as a prestigious sector to be in?
Those are very important questions for the National Planning Commission, because this third National Planning Commission, which was appointed by the President in December, is looking at the role of education in terms of its contribution to growing an inclusive economy. We have to begin with the National Development Plan that is intended to take us to 2030, and we have to look at what's been achieved, what hasn't been achieved, and what needs to be done to increase the effectiveness of the programs that were recommended in the National Development Plan so that we can indeed meet the aspirations of young people and meet the needs of the economy. And I'm very conscious that for young people, access to education and training is one of their greatest concerns and often their greatest frustrations. So at this stage, the National Planning Commission is listening carefully, first of all, to what government departments themselves are saying they've done and where they need support to ensure greater alignment. But we will also be listening very carefully to stakeholders, to young people themselves and their experiences, so that we can assure that we get greater effectiveness in responding to those concerns.
Yeah. Siphiwe, why are people gradually losing interest in technical and vocational skills that are so desperately needed in the economic mainstream of South Africa?
Thank you very much, leadership. Greetings to the viewers at home. My name is Siphiwe Khumalo, the president of Sarfata, which is an association that is organizing and leading all SRCs within 50 TVET colleges in this country. You know, the reality is that in history, that TVET colleges has been treated as a substandard within the higher education and training, because what has been happening in TVET colleges is that they've been neglected for quite a long time, and there's been no exposure of what TVET colleges are intended to do. If you can remember that previously colleges were referred to as FET colleges, of which we then experienced a transformation in 2014 of transforming FET colleges, further education and training, into TVET colleges, which is technical vocational education and training. So that we are able to respond to the skills revolution, which is a demand in this particular country. But the problem we are facing is that we are still experiencing societal norms that TVET colleges are perceived as a second option when students they fail, they do not pass well, they do not progress well after they've not met the requirements of entering a university, as a fallback plan so that those students are able to be captured in a substandard system, of which TVET colleges will never be treated like that, because TVET colleges are harboring the necessary skills that are going to transform and be able to contribute to the GDP of this country and assist this country to develop. But what we need to also appreciate is that, as you've said, the numbers are not growing as expected. From 2019 till now in 2022, we're still sitting at a cap of more than 620-something thousand in terms of enrollment, but less than 700,000, because our growth is aligned to the infrastructure development. You can't increase numbers of TVET enrollments if you don't take care of infrastructure and so forth, which is why we said there needs to be strides and there needs to be recognition of saying what are the type of skills that are offered in TVET colleges and what are TVET colleges going to contribute in the GDP, so that we are able to assist young people. Because what we need as a country and what young people need, it's a skill. It's a skill is something that is going to assist them to be able to develop as young people in life. They can go either line up for work, but they can equally create a work of their own, because the percentage of unemployment is really alarming, because we are sitting at around 35% of unemployment. Within that 35% of unemployment, 65% around it, it's youth unemployment. Within that particular youth, a bracket of 33% is graduates from the universities and colleges.
Yeah.
And majority of these university students is because they go to university and they enroll for courses that are popular or courses that have been accepted by society, that when you study this particular course, they are most important person in the society, without diagnosing and really understanding that there are skills that are going to assist this particular student when we drive and direct them to TVET colleges, so that they become artisanship. In the end of it, a decade of artisan of saying by 2020, let's at least attain 10,000 artisans, so that you are able to assist in the development. But however, we are reaching a deliberate effort, because for TVET colleges to transform, there must be a deliberate intention and effort by the Department of Higher Education and Training and the government.
So Siphiwe, let's come in there, because it seems you are sharing this particular view that has been shared by others who are looking from the outside, looking in. Mary Metcalfe, and maybe you can weigh in here. One of the issues that Siphiwe is raising, which has also been raised, is the unresponsiveness of the TVET curricula. So the instructional courses that are too rigid and obsolete, that no longer serve the needs, particularly of the labor force, but are also not responding to the global economy.
Yeah, thank you, Tobo. The National Development Plan was very clear about targets, but targets are numerical. And as the previous speaker was indicating, it's quality that matters as well as the quantity. And the quality of this critical sector, this sector is intended to provide the country with a specific set of vocational and occupational learnings that has to be matched to the needs of the economy, so that we increase labor absorption. And one of the challenges for many young people is they complete courses and are unable to transition into employment. Now, the quality of what's offered in TVET colleges can't be unresponsive to changes in the technological advances in the sectors into which students are moving. So we need TVET colleges that are of high quality, that are responsive to the needs of industry and which connect dynamically with the sectors of employment into which students will be moving, so that the knowledge that they gain is relevant, up to date, and constantly adapting, as you've indicated. We need close connections between the colleges and industry so that students can be getting access to relevant quality education that will assist in the transition to employment. But the goal of the NDP is also to grow an inclusive economy in which we have greater labor absorption of these wonderful young people that we have.
Do we know what has created this gap between the institutions and industry at this particular point, where our post-matric technical niche qualifications are far removed from what is required in the community and the labor market?
I think there are historical reasons for this. The colleges that existed before 1994 had a particularly small niche. Growing and expanding access in the ways that we have seen expansion means that there's huge institutional demands on each college in their different locations. These are located across the country. Many locations may be able to better exploit close links to industry, and many locations mean that they're distant from the real economic opportunities of employment in that sector, in that area. So we need institutions to be much more agile in the way that they connect to local needs, which will lead to employment.
Yeah.
This is a high priority for government.
Yeah.
It's something that the National Planning Commission is going to be engaging both industry and the DHET and students and all of the role players to understand what we can do to accelerate our progress towards the goals that we need to reach for 2030.
Yeah. Siphiwe, from someone who is in the system, in charge and responsible for your association that speaks to students in all the 50 TVET colleges that we have, what would need to happen to boost the responsiveness of the curricula in particular, in terms of articulation, in terms of what Mary Metcalfe has mentioned, relevance and quality, but in terms really of bringing out what is required today in our communities?
No, thank you very much. You know, in reality, we had proposed to the Department of Higher Education and Training that we need to reform our curriculum so that it's able to respond to the needs of the economy. What we've advised is that when institutions are reforming their curriculum, they should be able to bring in industries, corporate companies, and even our university counterparts in terms of articulation, because the problem we're facing, ours to say, TVET colleges are so vast that they are placed in almost every town, every city, every metro, every village. But their responsiveness, they should first, at least 80% of their curriculum, they should first respond to the local economy so that they're able to grow the local economy and respond to the nearby surrounding of industry demand. But the second part is that they should be able, in terms of pointing system, they should be able to articulate with our university counterparts. What we've raised with the Department of Higher Education and Training is that it can't be that we are having TVET colleges who are sitting and hampering our students year in, year out. They are enrolling our student, but they don't have a plan for placement of our students. There should be a prerequisite to say at least one TVET colleges should have at least 50 partners of playing students, because that will mean this particular college has thoroughly done an investigation and a research of saying these are the needed skills and these are the demands of the skills by the local industry and by the economic mainstream at large, so that our students will know that when they've passed and when they've possessed these particular skills, they are able to get a platform or to get a place where they are going to exercise and be able to perform with the necessary and relevant skills. We can no longer create courses that exist for the sake of they've existed for a very long time. We need to be able to say every skill that we produce within TVET colleges are responding to a certain demand. Our projected numbers of enrollment, they should be linked to the demand of what is happening within the surrounding economy and within the national economic mainstream, so that our students are able to use these skills, because the skills we produce, they are very important. In last month, we're having a world skills where our students were going to showcase the skills that they are doing within their different TVET colleges. If you were there, you can see that our students are able to perform utmost things that you can think that they are impossible, and they are being hampered within our TVET colleges. But what we saw that is lacking is that our society does not know that the students from the TVET colleges are able to perform such skills. And when we are doing these skills, we need to have a particular way of saying how do we introduce the skills that are being done in TVET colleges to the society, so that the society can be able to understand and accept the skills, what is being done in TVET colleges, so that they can advise their children. Because if you can go to the rural places, go in the township, the only language they know that after their children have studied and passed their matric, they must go to university, because they don't think there's a necessity for TVET colleges, and they don't understand the skills that are being produced.
So you're saying that is that as a result of poor communication of what TVET colleges are able to produce?
Yes, that is the reality, because not many people in the community or in the society, they understand what is being done in TVET colleges, which is why we say after we refine our skills in our curriculum, there should be then an intention of going and introducing the skills that we are doing to society, so that our society are able to accept them. Let's say for an example, we have students who are doing civil engineering in our different campuses. This particular student, when they do practical, they must be able to build a house, construct a house, but after the house has been marked and assessed, they need to demolish this particular house. And our take is that, why don't we go into collaboration with an SMME around the community or the municipality, so that our students, when they go for practical, they go and construct a house for a needy family. And what will that do to students? Those particular students, that particular house will be able to act as showcasing their particular skills in society, so that the society will be able to know their skills, giving back to the community. But thirdly, that house will act as a resume. When there are people who need skills from TVET students, and the TVET student will go and say, we've once built this particular house within the community, here is the house standing. Rather than having TVET students building within the campuses and destroying within the campuses, and they have nothing to show when they're exiting the campuses.
Siphiwe and Mary Metcalfe staying on. Unfortunately, Mpumzi suffering there from load shedding, so I had to drop out of that conversation. But we'll continue in a moment. Siphiwe Khumalo and Mary Metcalfe helping us in the conversation. We'll talk around the confusions on the admission policy and how that is contributing to the poor throughput as well as the dropout rate. Stay within Focus, as the focus tonight is on TVET colleges and what needs to be improved there for better performance. Back tonight, looking at TVET colleges and how to improve the prestigious outlook of TVET colleges, so that they are better understood in communities. Siphiwe Khumalo, Mary Metcalfe are still with us. Unfortunately, Mpumzi, we had to drop out of this conversation because of a poor connection due to load shedding. So before the break, as I mentioned, that we will speak about the admission and the confusion around the admission policy. But let's touch on what Siphiwe has raised, Mary Metcalfe. Investment in infrastructure for teaching and learning. Is there any understanding from the Commission why there's been a slow pace in investing in new technological infrastructure at TVET colleges?
I would say that the Commission is concerned about the slow pace of investing in the necessary infrastructure. And the infrastructure, as I think Siphiwe has already indicated, is not only the buildings, but it's the appropriate material, resources, equipment, so that students are able, as Siphiwe has already said, to have relevant and responsive curricula that will link them to real labor absorption. You know, the National Planning Commission that originated the NDP identified that as many as 65% of young graduates from colleges are unable to find work experience. Siphiwe's example of building a house and breaking it is a very good example of the failure to provide relevant, visible opportunities for demonstrating the skills that are of such value to the community. So we need to invest in the infrastructure not only to increase access, but the infrastructure that will make the learning relevant to the formal and the informal economy. And if we improve quality, we will raise the status and, as you say, the prestige of TVET colleges in public eye.
Yeah. Siphiwe, the confusion around the admission policy, there are some who are saying that this requires some attention. For example, people who are already in employment who want to come to TVET colleges and improve their skills, sometimes they don't get the RPL system working quite right. There's some confusion there. But not only that, those who were in universities who did not complete their qualifications are not getting the necessary credits when they come to TVET colleges. So the system, in the way that it is designed, it means these people come in and they have to start from scratch. And this, in a sense, contributing to the poor throughput as well as the dropout rate. What's your reflection on that?
No, thank you very much for that question. You know, it's something that you've been crying out loud for it as TVET colleges as well. That is why I've said in our curriculum reform, we need to even bring our university counterparts so that in terms of articulation and pointing system, we are able to articulate to each other. Because even for an example, for a student in TVET colleges, who has an end diploma, for them to go to university and do a BTech or a degree, they will struggle to be accredited. They will need to start afresh as a student who come from matric, because there's no proper way of articulation and our pointing system. Because in our TVET colleges, there are only 13 colleges that are in agreement with UNISA in terms of accreditation. Even those particular colleges, it's within limited courses, which is why we are saying we need to broaden the aspect of saying, let us be able to understand that these particular two institutions, they are able to complement one another, even in terms of articulation. And if you can remember previously, colleges, speaking of people who are coming from the workplace, there were many people, ideally colleges were having people who are going to do apprentices, because companies will bring people from their own company to go and get the necessary theory from TVET colleges so that they are able to improve their working skills within that particular company or within that particular industry, so that they are able to even innovate and be able to be more useful or even update their skills. But the moment we are having and we are harboring the skills that are not updated within the TVET sector itself, we are having a problem, which is why we said, let us be able to reform and update our curriculum, be able to bring all stakeholders so that we are able to address this particular problem, so that even our people who are coming from companies and they are there to get the necessary information to update their skills, they are able to get a relevant curriculum that will assist them, so that when they return to their place of work, they are better people and they are better skills. And even our students, so that when they exit with an end diploma, not all our students are going to be pleased with having an end diploma in life. They'll want to do a degree, a BTech, a master's, and honors. So let us be able to create a leeway for them to be able to articulate with our university counterparts and be able to align the pointing system so that it can assist our students.
Yeah. You agree, Prof, as a standardized college structure, something that needs to be also back and forth within the colleges, but also with the universities as well?
Thank you, Tobo. Siphiwe's really articulated very well what was the original conception of the National Qualifications Framework, that there should be an articulation between the progression of learning at TVET colleges, at universities, and that there need to be pathways My understanding is that the Department of Higher Education and Training is beginning to think about ways in which, in creating this articulation, we have to focus much more on competencies, where young people, where people who have already been in the workplace can demonstrate those competencies. That needs to be acknowledged so that we can build the pathways intended in the National Qualifications Framework. Siphiwe is correct.
Yeah. In terms of then bolstering capacity for policy compliance and implementation, I'm sure it's an area that particularly you're interested in, Mary Metcalfe. The capacity of some, not all, dysfunctional institutions, and we've get a number of reports around the leadership in those institutions, around the support that those institutions are getting, particularly in being compliant, issuing out results on time. Students sometimes pass, they don't get their results, don't get their certificates, and this goes on and on and on. How do we improve on that?
The work of this National Planning Commission must be to understand better why this is not working, to listen to conversations, and I'm glad to see the students themselves taking a leadership role so that we can identify the blockages. We can work with all of the stakeholders in government and the private sector to address these blockages and ensure that they are addressed. These kinds of conversations are critical to understanding the challenges, identifying the problems, and increasing the capacity of the colleges to be more responsive. The original National Development Plan stressed building the capability of the staff at colleges to be able to play the leadership role that is required to have a flexible, responsive, adaptive institution that builds the opportunities for young people.
Yeah. The staff also, are also complaining. It's not just the students who are complaining of the institution, but the staff also themselves are feeling unsupported, particularly when you look at the employee attrition in critical positions at TVET colleges. They are talking of a system that is still organized on the lines of authoritarian style, a racial kind of line, a hierarchical kind of line, even a lot of bureaucratic issues that they've got to deal with. So staff feeling unsupported there. So that good kind of talent that we need to be at TVET colleges not staying long. As far as the retention strategy, what are the suggestions?
I think we have an opportunity as a country in the 8 years that remain before we reach the goal of 2030 in our National Development Plan to have conversations such as this, to listen to the lecturers, to listen to the students, to listen to the private sector, and understand better what can be done. At this stage of NPC3, we're listening, learning, and we need to bring together the stakeholders to find the solution so that we can accelerate the progress that we need to make towards 2030.
Yeah. Siphiwe, reflect on the compliance of institutions, but also the challenges of staff themselves that they are facing in the employment of these institutions.
No, thank you very much. The problem we're facing is that as TVET colleges, we've been underfunded for a very long time. So even in terms of staffing, we are finding a problem because you even find that there are lecturers who are having more groups than they should be teaching, which means they are being overloaded with work and so forth. And the problem that we're having as well is that we're having many lecturers and staff members that are not developed so that they're able to reach their greater potentials in terms of assisting our students to be able to become what they want to become in life, of which is a problem. But the biggest problem of all of this is that we should be able to encourage treasury, and there should be deliberate effort of trying to fund TVET colleges so that they're able to reach their potentials, so that they're able to have the necessary infrastructure so that they can be able to comply in whatever ways that they need to comply in. Because compliance comes with financial implication. And if we continue to be underfunded, everything we'll do in TVET colleges will be as a compromise, because everything we do, we are compromising this, we are compromising this. So that's why we're able to do the business of the day. But this should not be the case, which is why I was saying we can no longer accept the decision of year in, year out when there's a financial budget. Always TVET colleges are being underfunded, while the most vulnerable sector that needs to be developed, that the most important sector that is housing these young people who have skills that are going to assist very to play a vital role in the economic mainstream of this particular society. Of which is why we are saying let us be able to fund TVET colleges so that they can perform their utmost potential and be able to assist this particular student of ours.
Yeah. As we wrap up, Mary Metcalfe, in a final thought, in terms of policies, in terms of priorities, in terms of targets that we are aiming at, the mid-level skills that we need, are we proving to be effective? Is there something that's still missing that we need to be doing there?
We have to improve quality, and the challenge in doing so is that we have to be able to use our best energies and commitment to do so within a resource-constrained environment. Education takes a large component of the national budget. We have to find ways of being more effective, to being more efficient, being more adaptive, because together we have to address the very challenges that you've identified and Siphiwe's identified. We must use the next few years to listen, to learn, to find the energy, to find the commitment, to find the solutions to these challenges. And this is going to be a journey that the National Planning Commission will be taking forward with civil society, government, and the private sector.
Metcalfe, Siphiwe, Khumalo, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on this evening. Let's look at what you're saying tonight via WhatsApp to the conversation on TVET colleges and what companies need to do, industry, and what the institutions themselves need to be focusing on. The TVET colleges will never meet their planning targets if the syllabus is not the same as that of the universities. That is SCAP from CDB. Anonymous saying, evening, Tobo. We have companies that do assist in training, e.g. Transnet. We have qualified artisans, but the challenge is that companies are not hiring these artisans. And another one saying, sectors such as mining are not employing TVET graduates due to substandard training. The MQA is not providing tangible support to TVET learners. Some of your reflections then tonight to the conversation here on In Focus. We'll continue in a moment with a look at what's been making news here on the channel this